どうしようってんだ、そんなもん持ち出して。
女は
賞金に目がくらんで飛び出して行きやがった。今頃どこぞでなんぞしくじってるだろうよ。
なるほど。
言っとくけどな、魔王の賞金は手に入らねえぞ。もう死んでる。殺されたんだ。仲間割れでな。分かってんのか？こいつは罠だ。間違いねえ。
ああ、全部知ってる。
知ってるだと？まさかお前、魔王の。
昔世話になった。
Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel, nice to see you again. This is the fourth and final part in this series of 4 videos taken from the 5th episode of Cowboy Bebop. So we'll get stuck in immediately.
どうしようってんだ、そんなもん持ち出して。
女は
賞金に目がくらんで飛び出して行きやがった。どうしようってんだ、そんなもん持ち出して。
女は
賞金に目がくらんで飛び出して行きやがった。
Now Jet is a great source of very pithy, idiomatic and also masculine language, probably a better source of it than Spike in fact. So here he says, 賞金に目がくらんで飛び出して行きやがった. So you have an expression here that means that your eyes dazzle at something. Maybe that your eyes are dazzled by something, you'd have to say in English, but the meaning is clear. It doesn't literally mean that somebody's dazzled by something, it's being used figuratively. Tobidasu means to jump out, most obviously. You see this on road signs in places in Japan. Tobidashi means jumping out as a noun. So if there's a sign somewhere saying that little kids might jump out, please be careful. It'll say tobidashi in some sense, or tobidasu. So you have the noun and the verb, right? So Spike says to Jet, where's Faye? And Jet responds by saying that she's been dazzled by the promise of this huge bounty and that she's basically got the hell out of there to go and try and find this guy, Mao, who they think is still alive. So the verb here, tobidasu, is tweaked twice. It's tweaked once, you make the te form, then you add iku, and that means that the motion is away from the people who are speaking. And then it's tweaked again by adding yagaru to the mass stem, right? Tobidashite ikiyagatta. This yagaru is very Japanese, very unlike anything that you get in English. It's a way of expressing contempt and derision for the person performing the action. So here Jet is expressing his contempt for Faye and what she's doing, right? If you ever reach the point where your Japanese is good enough for you to spit these sentences out the way Jet does, using all this colourful language, then you've made it. You can stop, you can retire, you can come back and teach me. Although it might take you a while to get as good at Japanese as Jet is.
今頃どこぞでなんぞしくじってるだろうよ。
なるほど。
言っとくけどな、魔王の賞金は手に入らねえぞ。もう死んでる。殺されたんだ。今頃どこぞでなんぞしくじってるだろうよ。
なるほど。
言っとくけどな、魔王の賞金は手に入らねえぞ。もう死んでる。殺されたんだ。
Here we've got more good stuff from Jet. You could probably just learn Japanese from Jet actually. You probably don't have to listen to anybody else. When I heard this for the first time, it was obvious what it meant, but there were some words here that were a bit different to what I expected. You probably know the words dokoka and nanika or nanka in Japanese. Dokoka means somewhere, nanika means something. Dokozo is obviously the same in terms of its meaning at least as dokoka. Nanzo is obviously the same as nanka. So these are presumably archaic versions of these words. You hardly ever hear them. Like I said, the way Jet speaks is often very stylized. Shikujiru means to mess things up or to mess something up. So what Jet is saying here is by now I'm sure Faye is off somewhere messing something up. Can you use these words when you speak Japanese? I don't mean shikujiru, I mean can you use words like dokozo and nanzo? The answer is basically no. Jet obviously is voiced by a native voice actor who is reading lines that have been prepared in advance to impress upon you a certain style and a certain manner of speech. You are presumably a gaijin whose Japanese is not that great, because if your Japanese were really great, you wouldn't be here, I don't think, watching these videos of mine. So what that means is that if you try and use this stuff, you're going to sound weird and unnatural, and people are either not going to understand you or they're going to think that you're a bit strange. Again, this is one of these things that's jet specific in my experience. I've never heard any native speaker say this in any real conversation, and it is good to be aware of the fact that some of the stuff you hear in anime is stuff that you, to all intents and purposes, cannot use. Just file it away in your passive vocabulary and leave it at that.
仲間割れでな。分かってんのか？こいつは罠だ。間違いねえ。
ああ、全部知ってる。
仲間割れでな。分かってんのか？こいつは罠だ。間違いねえ。
ああ、全部知ってる。
Just want to make a quick point here about pronunciation. If you listen to Jet saying wakatten no ka, it actually sounds like he's saying wagatten no ka with a G, to put it crudely, rather than with a K, right? If you're thinking in terms of Romaji. This is actually quite common, especially with this verb. K sometimes turns into G, which means that the voiceless consonant ends up being voiced. I don't hear this the other way around. You don't hear T's, for example, turning into D's in Japanese, at least not in my experience. It's something specific to these velar stops, K and G. If you listen carefully, you might hear bakayaro as being pronounced close to bagayaro, bagayaro, if people say it quickly. To me, it sounds more like bagayaro. This only works if you pronounce things quickly, if you say them quickly. If you pronounce things slowly and turn your K's into G's, so to speak, that's going to sound a bit strange. This is something that seems to happen sometimes with some speakers when they speak quickly. Anyway, if you think you're hearing this, then no, it's not your imagination. It seems to be real.
知ってるだと？まさかお前、魔王の。
昔世話になった。
知ってるだと？まさかお前、魔王の。
昔世話になった。
Now, 2 quick points to finish off. してるだと looks weird. Why would you have a da after a normal verb, right? You can't say 食べるだ, 飲むだ. You can't say this kind of thing in Japanese. But you can say this when you are quoting back to someone what they themselves have just said. So Spike says that he knows something, that he's aware of it, and Jet is saying back to him, in effect, you know! You can bounce it back to them in Japanese by adding dato to the end of what they're saying. Don't try and analyze the grammar too much. You just have to accept this as a chunk that you can stick back onto something when you're quoting it. Last but not least, you have the very Japanese expression sewa ni natta. Sometimes they add the honorific o sewa ni natta. Either way, here Spike is the subject, though he hasn't put himself into the sentence. He's saying that somebody was kind to him. But like I said, Spike is the subject, so it means I came to be indebted to someone. I was in a position in which somebody was kind to me. It's difficult to translate this into English, actually. It's one of these classic, nearly untranslatable Japanese expressions. But the person who receives the kindness is the subject. The word sewa means looking after or caring for something, and the expression derives from that. If they look after you, if somebody looks after you, then you're the one who sewa ni natta. There are actually a lot of expressions that use this word sewa, and a lot of them express concepts that would be difficult to express without it. For example, when you go and visit someone, when you go into their house in Japan, you say osewa ni narimasu, osewa ni narimasu. Or if you go and stay with someone, then when you leave, you could say osewa ni narimashita. Might be a good idea to try and learn the most common of these expressions. They will come in useful when you speak Japanese. So that's it. That's the final video in this set of 4 based on Cowboy Bebop episode 5. We'll be seeing more Cowboy Bebop in the future, so I'll see you then. Thanks very much. Ciao, ciao. Bye bye.